this way, at least for now, until we can figure out if there's a better solution. And let's go ahead and get started, and then more folks will join us as time goes on, and then tomorrow we'll have more as well, and then people will be randomly in and out, as is always the case. So, welcome! This is the Virtual Residency Intermediate Workshop. This is the first time we've ever done this, so you get to be a grand experiment. Are you excited?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to welcome everybody on behalf of the University of Oklahoma, on behalf of our new president, on behalf of our interim VPIT/CIO, Eddie Hibbs, and the whole crew of the OU Supercomputing Center for Education Research, or Oscar, you'll hear me say that all the time. There's a little logo and everything. And if you're out in TV land, make sure that you mute yourself. And I'm going to do a quick mute of you, of everybody. You can unmute when you want to talk, but then re-mute yourself after you finish talking. And from time to time, maybe I'll go in and mute you again, because if we're catching your background chatter, that's going to make it confusing for everyone. All right, so I mentioned this is a total experiment. For those of you who haven't seen it before, by the way, I will get these slides posted right after the talk, but if you haven't seen this before, the web page URL is there. There's a workshop email address, a Gmail address that you can send questions to, and it's set up to auto-forward to both me and Debbie if you have questions or concerns. Zoom, welcome to Zoom. Those of you who've never Zoomed before, come Zoom with us. You're going to have a grand time. I'm going to shut down my email because it's going to keep making noise. Yes, go away. All right, good. So we'll have the slides posted on the web page, but we can't guarantee to post them before each session. And I just clean forgot to post these, so we'll just chug along, and I'll get them to you later. And then we're going to be posting the streaming video. In the past, historically, we had been post the streaming video, and the reason we couldn't post the streaming video is because under the Americans with Disabilities Act, it's necessary under our institution's interpretation of ADA, it's necessary to have at least a transcript, if not closed captioning. So that used to be a barrier because the labor cost of doing that is quite high. Now, YouTube auto captioning takes care of that and is much, much better than it used to be. It used to be, I don't know, 50% accurate. Now it's more like 95% accurate. So that actually is useful. So if you want to watch this late at night and not disturb people in the house who are trying to sleep, you'll be able to do it with captions, just not until the next day. It takes, what, Horst, about a couple hours to caption an hour's worth of video. So there'll always be a delay between when we do the session live and when the captioned version of it gets posted. But we're very excited about being able to provide those videos. Make sure you mute yourself. That's very important. Here's the details on how to do the zooming and so on. That's great. And if you're doing it from your handheld, from your Android or iOS handheld device, you can download from your store, or that OS's store, you can download an app that'll do it on your handheld. And I've done it on my phone any number of times. It works great. If you can only do audio, there's phone numbers you can call, both within the US and outside the US. It doesn't guarantee every country in the world, but many, many countries, there is a local in-country phone number that you can call. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves. So say who you are and where you're from. And if you don't want to share your full name, you're welcome to just say your first name or a nickname you prefer to be called. What your role is at your institution, so you make sure you say what your institution is. And then what you showed up here for, why you wanted to come here for this event. And we'll do in-room first, and then we'll try and get as many folks as possible out in TV land. So, Sila, you can start. Don't be shy.
Hello, my name is Sila. I came from the University of Central Oklahoma. Right now I'm in my senior year, and I work as a research assistant. And I wanted to attend the virtual residency program.
Great, thanks. Okay, Jen.
Microphones.
Oh yeah, we do have this one, so I guess we could pass this around. There. So okay, you can speak right in the mic. But it's, okay, so the microphone only helps for Zoom. Everybody shout loudly.
I'm Rasha. I come from Edmond, which is here in Oklahoma. I'm part of University of Central Oklahoma, a student there. And I came to the visual residency because I thought it would be good to see its offer.
Oh, great.
I'm Kathy Traxler. I'm from Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. No, I didn't drive all that way today. And what else am I supposed to answer?
What your role is and why you're here.
HPC training and outreach for the Center for Computation and Technology. And why I'm here, I came for the party.
Oh, great.
That means I can go home tomorrow, right?
My name is Dirk Colbrate. I'm from Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan. I'm the Director of HPC Studies for a newly formed department to teach scientists how to use computers. And I'm here because this is an awesome group.
Yeah.
I'm Jeff Foggy with US Geological Survey. Our office is in Denver, but we have offices nationwide. I believe the Research Computing Group is a nationwide research computing group. And I'm here to help develop the field of facilitation and cyber infrastructure.
My name is Natalia. I'm also at USGS. I'm a computer scientist, mostly help scientists get on the HPC machine and also optimize their code in different languages. Jeff told me about this, so like you.
Hi, I'm Roby Akins from Penn State University. I'm the IT project manager for Institute for Cyber Science. Why I came here is I want to advance my knowledge and just get better at being a CI professional and working with the researchers at Penn State.
Hi, I'm Frank Bencourt. You can just call me Frankie. I'm from the University of Tennessee, and I'm a research assistant there. My mentor sent me down here, and I'm just hoping to learn as much as I possibly can and learn how to probably become a more effective communicator and just drive my knowledge a little bit more.
Hello, everybody. My name is Israel Fletis. I'm from the University of California, Riverside, California. I'm the Director of Academic Technology, and at our campus, research technology or support thereof are limited and distributed. I'm trying to see if we can formalize it and provide better support for the campus. So I'm here to learn as much as I can and get you as many people as I can.
I'm Jason Speckman. I'm from here. I work at Oscar, and I'm one of the admins that helps out with care and feeding the supercomputer. And I came for the food.
My name is Jim Ferguson. I'm also with Oscar here at OU. I'm a research computing facilitator here. So I'm trying to learn from others who do the same thing and hopefully pass along some things I might know. So.
I'm Amy Walsh. I'm from the University of Missouri in Columbia. I'm on the cyber infrastructure component of our NSF Upscore Track 1 grant. We're on our 5th year out of 5 this year. And I came here because I was here 2 years ago and I got a lot out of it, learned a lot, and it was very exciting to come back.
Hi, I'm Ruchira Hega. I live in Norman, but I'm an online student at University of Arizona ECE department, hoping to transfer to the on-campus master's program coming spring. This summer I asked help from Henry for me to learn more about HPC, and I was interested in the security aspect, so he asked me to come and join. I'm in here.
I'm Mike Hutchison. I'm the Associate Director of High Performance and Research Computing Services at Baylor University down in Waco. I'm really interested to find out more about this workshop. I saw Henry sent out the invitation and looked at some of the topics. this might be applicable to what we're trying to accomplish at Baylor.
Hi, I'm Aaron Bergstrom. I'm the Cyber Infrastructure Manager for the University of North Dakota, where I direct the HPC and big data activities for the university. I'm here partially because I want to have the next level of conversations when it comes to the ACI ref activities, but also to encourage my student employees to attend because they want to come by themselves. So, sort of getting there as well.
I'm Jason Watt from Boise State University. I'm our cyber infrastructure engineer, and I'm here to kind of continue on and learn more about facilitation and continue last year's workshop.
Hello, my name is Jason Sims. I'm from Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania, where I'm the instructional technologist. And I'm here because on our campus, we are starting to think about research and high performance computing in a more centralized way. Up until this point, it's been fairly distributed. And so I'm working towards centralizing it and consolidating it and providing campus services out of that. And so I'm here to learn the wisdom. So we're thinking about things like notebooks and Jupyter and science gateways and all these kinds of things. So I'm hoping to talk with a few people about those. And frankly, I'll say go Vols. It's my alma mater, so we're going to have to chat about that. So.
Hi, I'm Dan Moss. I went to steal. You guys know who Dana Brunson is. She is the president of the Henry Newman Fan Club. I am the president of the Henry Newman Stalker Club. This is my, I think it's my fourth, have we done these 4 times now?
I was about to ask, actually, after we get done introducing ourselves, remind me to ask how many of you are new, repeaters, 3-peats, and 4-peats.
Yes, I'm a 4-peat. This is my vacation for the year. I think that's sad. Norman's a great place, very fun. I'm from Lawrence, Kansas.
My name is Young. I'm a professor in computer science from University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, and also I'm a director of Cyber Security Center.
Hi, I'm Sam Razavi. I'm a system administrator. Everything goes with system, started working with users, and then 2 years ago I came to this workshop, and that's when I got involved with grant writing and these things. And since that, I get to learn.
Hi, I'm Janal from Pervez from University of Texas at Dallas. This is my second time. My first HPC conference was coming in here. And then when I went to supercomputing, and then I knew how valuable this one was. I was just test out, it gave me a real boost. And I learned a lot of things. I worked as an HPC administrator. It used to be 2-man show, so I did everything else and anymore. But I learned a lot of things from here. And so it's the second time I'm over here. And I was telling my boss, "Okay, do not miss this."
I can, sure.
My name is Albert Chen. I'm from Oklahoma Baptist University, a small local university 45 miles east from Lowell. And my field is space physics / computational physics training. And my main duty over many years is to build small clusters. 4 students, get a student, and my student to join me to learn the cluster. And once as I grow, and I feel like I need more knowledge or tips. So a few months ago, Henry started to organize a meeting to visualize, to finalize the agenda as well as the curriculum. And I hope that I can learn all this trick and bring back to my institute. Convince people like the English professor, like a fine art professor, and one of the tools to supply the need that they want, or convince them instead of use the skills. You don't learn this all from you. And now we can have a better table with get students and faculty to involve with this. So that's all my reason. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hello, my name is Sharon Tetiga. I'm from the University of California, Santa Barbara. So Isabel, I'll be talking to you about the thing. I just recently moved there. I'm a 3rd timer here. and I really came because of Henry. He's the best instructor ever. So I am a part of Henry fan club too. And this has been a great experience for me, and I'm hoping to continue to learn more so I can bring high performance computing to social science.
I'm Sandra Gesing. I'm from the University of Notre Dame, Research Assistant Professor of Computer Science and Engineering and Computational Scientist at the Center for Research Computing. And I'm mostly interested in usability and sustainability of research computing, which is also part of this facilitation, having career paths for research software engineers. So there are a couple of synergies with other projects. I'm also like the Science Game-Based Community Institute, or the concept validation of the US Research Software Sustainability Institute. We really need another title. It's short, earthy, so if I talk about earthy. And I'm a repeater. I came the first time last year, and I really enjoyed it. And as I said, I love the synergy between these different projects that we are working on: sustainability, usability, research computing, and in general. It's a great workshop.
There, Horst Severini right here at OU. I'm a high energy physicist by training, and I still work for the high energy physics group, but I'm with my other hat on. I'm here in Oscar. I'm in charge of distributed computing and also a research computing facilitator. So with Jim, trying to learn more about how to do our jobs better.
Okay, and I'm going to turn to the folks out in TV land. Let me pull up the list of, and I'm going to go through you in alphabetical order by first name, apparently. So, Abby, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and make sure you unmute yourself before you talk?
Hi, I'm Abby. I'm here with the MGH-PCC research
Can you tell us what that stands for?
The Massachusetts Green High Performance Computing Cluster. And I'm here just to learn a little bit more as an early career researcher and student trainee.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, Anjali.
Hi, I'm from University. Let me mute myself. And I'm working as a training developer. And the director of RC. Conference probably to help the technical IT in using research computing resources. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And Augusto.
Hello, this is Augusto Casas. I am with the University of Connecticut. I am a professor in the computer science department. And I am here because I want to learn more about HPC.
Thank you, Augusto. Brad B.
Hi, this is Brad Berkman. I teach mathematics at the Louisiana School for Math Science and the Arts, and I'm here because I want to try to make HPC more accessible to my students.
Okay, and Brad S.
I'm Brad Spitzbert. I'm a research programmer at Stony Brook. Working on a cyber infrastructure project balancing evolution to analyze the amounts of satellites we have, mostly of the Antarctic. I decided that I'm relatively new to the SCI world, learn more the resources.
Thank you. Ciao.
Hello, I'm Chao. I'm a graduate student here.
And I'm here now to look for more views about this high performance computing job.
And Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Mizumoto from the University of California, San Diego. I'm the Director of Research IT Services. This is my first time remote, but I was there twice.
Wow, well, we're having a little bit of audio trouble, but we're just going to barrel through this. Are people in TV land hearing each other okay? Okay, you guys are hearing each other okay. Hopefully then the recording is coming out okay. Come and go. Okay, Sid, go ahead.
Hi, Henry. I'm Sid Burns from University of San Diego. The echo is killing me here, sorry. University of California, San Diego, and I'm participating this year, although was there last year face-to-face, and I'm looking to expand my facilitation skills and build on what we learned last year and what we've been doing at the University of California.
Okay, Dylan. Dylan might be on the phone. Probably on the app. Dylan, if you're talking, you're still muted. Okay, I think we've lost Dylan. Okay, G. Bullman. I don't know what your first name is, but. Some people may not have microphones. Can you mute your mic when remote folks are talking? That might be it. Hang on. No mic. No mic today for G. Bullman. Okay. Katya. Oops.
Hi all, can you hear me? Hi all. Yes. I'm a manager of scientific programming and applications at Research Computing Services in Boston University. It's my second year joining this workshop. I attended it last year, and I'm looking forward for the great content of this workshop.
Thanks. And we'll move on to Bahar.
I'm
Go
not
ahead
sure.
and unmute yourself.
I'm not sure who you said, but this is Jackie Scoggins. But I think if we skip Jay, because I can't hear you. Jay, I can't hear you.
Jackie, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but can you mute it so it won't echo back to us? Okay. I'm Jacqueline Scoggins. I'm from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. I'm in the Scientific Computing Group in HPC. The reason why my role is a system analyst, and the reason why I joined this group because I was curious to see what it was all about and to learn more about this program. So that's why I joined in.
Thanks. Okay, I wonder if Mohammed can hear me. Mohammed, can you hear me?
Hello, Henry. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I think you can see me here. Hello. My name is Mohammed Panash. I'm a graduate student doing my PhD in computer science and electrical and computer engineering at New Mexico State University. So I'm also working as a computer infrastructure architect at an MSc. I had the chance to join ACIRF last year and like in person, but this time like I'm joining by like video conference, and I think it's going to be great opportunity for me to get the experience and the knowledge and transfer it to my institution.
Thank you. Patrick, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Patrick Clements. I work with Vermont EPSCoR at the University of Vermont. My title there is Manager of Cyber Infrastructure and Partnerships. I guess I should, for those who don't know, EPSCoR is a large grant at our university, about $4 million a year. So we have about 40 faculty members, and a large portion of our grant is modeling or computational modeling. And so I help out with helping the domain scientists run their models on HPC and data management and all that cyber stuff that they don't want to deal with. Why I'm here. I was in person last year and greatly enjoyed myself. It was great to see others doing the same thing that I am and running into the same problems I run into and talking about solutions to those problems. And so I definitely set aside this week on my calendar for this year to learn more and to engage with this community. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. And Randy.
Hi, this is Randall Downer. I'm at Colby College, manager of high performance computing there, and in the implementation of a CC Star NSF grant. Why am I here? To help build community. We all need it. I'm working in a shop of one, and I know of a lot of people who work in shops much larger than mine.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, Robert G.
Hi, I'm Robert Grandin from Iowa State University. Attended this virtually last year and thought the intermediate agenda looked interesting, so interested to find out what we have coming up for the week.
Thanks. And Robert J. And Robert J., if you're talking, you're muted. Okay, and Scott.
Hi, I'm also at the University of Vermont with the EPSCoR project in Vermont, working with Patrick. Have a mixed role of both modeling and helping the GRAs and postdocs and faculty, buffer them from some of the ugliness that is using parallel computing and remote pools and GPUs on, boxes that have no desktop, that sort of thing.
Thanks. And how about Shane?
Hi, I'm Shane Sanders. I am the manager of the research cyber infrastructure at the Jackson Laboratory, and I wanted to be involved and participate in this to, see if there's anything I could do to take back to my team and be better at facilitating with our own faculty members and that kind of thing across our campuses.
Thank you. And Sridhar?
Hi, this is Sridhar from West Virginia State University. I am an assistant research professor. My field is bioinformatics, and I'm here to get trained in the facilitating researchers to access the high performance computing locally as well as exceed resources. Thank you. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you, Sridhar. And Dipesh? Okay, so I think we don't have Dipesh. If I missed anyone who wants to introduce themselves, speak up now, yell loudly. Otherwise, we'll move on. Okay. And I'm going back to the speaker view, and I'll put up the slides. Good. All right, so real quick, here's the outline. I'll point out again that it's an experiment. We'll talk about facilitators. We'll talk about various programs, and then we'll talk about you. So here's the thing. Nobody has any idea how to do this, least of all me. Now, we do now officially know how to teach the introductory workshop. We know how to teach the introductory workshop because we've taught the introductory workshop. We've taught it 3 times now, and people keep showing up. So it must be working. That's my theory. How many of you, remind me, how many of you, this is your 2nd time? Okay, 3rd time, 4th time. Okay, so me and Dan. And first time, yeah, how many of you are new this year? Okay, see, it's a good mix. So no matter which one of those is you, you are exactly the right person to be here. So we did a grand experiment in 2015, and by grand experiment, I mean the night before we started, I was curled up on the couch in the fetal position, whimpering, because I was sure that it was going to be a complete disaster and failure, and it was going to wreck my career. And I would spend the rest of my career, people would laugh and point and say, there's that idiot who tried to run that workshop that was a complete disaster. And the reason for that was nobody knew how to do this. And now that we're at the intermediate level, guess what? Nobody knows how to do this. So we are going to give it a try. And the reason that this time I'm filled with confidence, there was no fetal position whimpering at all this time, even though it's brand spanking new, is because I don't need to have faith in me, because I have faith in you. Because it's the community that built this workshop and the community that's doing all the presenting. This is not Henry Week. Sorry for the 2 of you who are my fan club. Yeah, I have no illusions how far that goes. It's not Henry Week, it's Everybody Week, and I'm trying as hard as humanly possible to minimize the amount of Henry you get stuck with. But there will be some Henry. But the goal is to have as little Henry as humanly possible. And as somebody mentioned a little earlier, we've been designing this workshop, since mid-spring maybe? Is that about when we started? I think I had to get done with all the grant proposals. The last of the grant proposals was due on Valentine's Day, so that was a big thrill. But I had to get through all of that before we could even get started gearing up for this stuff. And we were doing it every other week, and then at some point we realized that every other week was not often enough, so we started having a call every week, and that ran through last Thursday or Friday. I think it was Friday, was the last one that we had in preparation for this. So I think we're there. We might grab a few of you as extra panelists for a couple of the panels, but otherwise we're good. And we have no idea what we're doing, and none of us know how to teach this stuff. But there are enough of us that collectively we're going to be fantastic. So how many of you are excited because you know you have faith in all of us collectively to do a good job? Good, because if you're counting on me to do it right, you're screwed. Okay. And this is a brand new way to do workforce development in cyber infrastructure. Nobody's tried to do this until we tried to do this. No one has ever been dumb enough to try and teach this material until we came along. And it's up to you. This is not about somebody teaching you. This is about us teaching each other. And if we have to drag it kicking and screaming out of each other, it's not going to be a big success. We all have to enthusiastically contribute because none of us know enough to teach. Well, okay, there's maybe, what do we have, like 5 talks total the whole week, is that right? Like we're doing 4 sessions a day starting tomorrow morning. And I think in total there's like 5 actual talks. And the rest of it is roundtables and panels and stuff like that, where we're working together to help each other learn. Okay, I think I've already said all this stuff. Good, so I'm apparently pretty smart and ahead of myself. All right, so facilitators. So how many of you know what a research computing facilitator is? And how many of you, this is brand spanking new for you? Yay, all right, good. So it's a good mix. Way back in about, I think it was 2013 or 14, Ron Livney at University of Wisconsin-Madison coined the term Advanced Cyber Infrastructure Research and Education Facilitators. We've kind of squeezed that down to research computing facilitators, but it all means the same thing. The idea is people who work with researchers and educators, with users of advanced cyber infrastructure to do the research or education that the advanced cyber infrastructure is intended for. Now, by the way, that's a somewhat academic-centric definition. If you are outside of the academic world, your definition might use somewhat different words, but the basic idea is pretty much going to be the same. Typically, an entire institution is going to be served by a very small number of facilitators. My guess is that the upper limit on the number of people in the academic world who will have this job title is probably 1,000. And if everybody who registered for the workshop participates over the course of the week, we will have already trained half of you for the entire national academic community. Now that doesn't include government, who are included in the workshop, but not in that 1,000 count. Doesn't include nonprofits, again, included in the workshop, not included in that 1,000 count. Definitely does not include industry. Again, welcome in the workshop, but my guess is industry will be 10 to 100 times bigger. They may not know it yet, but that's going to happen. But you typically are a very small head count within an institution. One is, well, less than 1 FTE is the median, and is likely to remain so for the foreseeable future. At some places it's part-time, at some places it's full-time. Here at OU, we have 1 full-time and 1 part-time, so we're doing both. And it's a mix of different kinds of people with different kinds of backgrounds. Some are, let's call it traditional researchers, faculty, postdocs, graduate students, undergraduates who have a research background. Some are research staff, and some come from the IT enterprise side and have found themselves, often the way that this works is, no, you're now in charge of research computing. Yes, you thought you were in charge of the network, but no, that's not true anymore. How many of you come from an enterprise IT background? Yeah, okay, so did that happen to you? One day they said, you're in charge now. Pretty much. Yeah, that's basically the standard paradigm when enterprise IT folks get into this business, right? And you may come with some background in research, or you may come with no background in research whatsoever, and suddenly you're navigating an entirely new world. Okay. I'm going to skip over some of this because we're sort of low on time and this is sort of historical stuff. But way back, somebody asked for money. They said yes, but it wasn't enough. And so the money was there, but we got kicked out, we being OU. We were on the proposal. They said, yeah, we don't have enough money for OU, so out you go. And they put their boot in our behind in a very polite way. They were very nice about it. But then we went around that. Because there was a call, so the NSF has been running this program called Campus Cyber Infrastructure since 2012, and they funded, I think on the order of 200 or more grants, mostly focused on research networking, especially at the high end. So if you're familiar with terms like Science DMZ or friction-free networking or things of this nature, there was a lot of money spent on that, and then for a few years, there was a sub-program within that program that was intended to pay for people who work with researchers instead of being researchers themselves. And the federal research funding agencies, as a general rule, do not like to pay for the salaries of non-researchers. If you are not a researcher, you are the institution's problem, financially speaking, not the funding agency's problem. They've made that quite clear over the years. So when they suddenly had a sub-program where they were planning to pay for, it was on the order of half a dozen institutions to hire someone who was not themselves a researcher but was going to be helping researchers. This was primarily in the context of networking at that point. Everybody and their dog submitted one of those proposals because it's so rare that the NSF does that. Well, we were among the everyone and their dog to submit that, and we needed a differentiator. We needed something that would allow us to stand out from the crowd, because aside from what I'm about to talk about, which is this, everything else that we wrote, any institution could have said. There was nothing magical about the rest of our proposal. But when we had been part of this much bigger proposal that we got kicked off of because there wasn't enough money, then we had proposed to do essentially this virtual residency, although there was a lot more money in that grant for it than we had here. So we carved out 10% of this proposal for a person and said, we're going to run a couple of workshops, one a year, on how to do this kind of stuff. And we had like 33 or something institutions that sent us a little email that said, yeah, if you did that, we'd be interested. We're not promising that we'll show up, but we're interested. So that was compelling enough. We got enough money in there to be able to jumpstart this program. And since then, I have to tell you, things have gone completely off the rails, but in the best way possible. So here was the little text. This is what we were going to do, right? And then here was the little text, this boldface stuff about what it was super exciting, was a brand new thing that nobody had ever done. And we just threw it in there so we'd get the grant money to pay for the person, right? It was all kind of the, well, what can we throw in there that would sound attractive, maybe get interest from the reviewers? Well, they loved it. Oh, how many of you have ever had this experience? You submit a grant proposal, you got like a little thing in there that you just kind of threw in there, figured it'd be, there'd be like one reviewer would go, okay, that pushes me over the edge, right? I'll say it's good, right? And no, they loved it. They thought it was the best thing since stacked hay. They just thought it was great. And we were like, oh no, now we have to do it. Which, by the way, for the record, that's actually how my career got started. I had applied for grad school at a particular institution, and they had accepted me but not given me a TA-ship, which meant that they didn't really want me. I was sort of marginal. And I have been told by others that if you apply for a PhD program and they don't offer to pay you, this is in STEM disciplines, if they don't offer to pay for your PhD, to have you as an assistantship of some kind, then you're in over your head. So at the last minute, I got a call and they said, would you like to come and do such and so? That was sort of tangentially related to what I said I wanted to do. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally want to do that, which I had no idea what it was, but I totally want to do that. And that kickstarted the whole thing. I found out later on what had happened was they'd thrown that particular thing into the proposal. They weren't really that serious about it. And the reviewer said, oh, we love this. And they're like, oh, we better get the best ranked person in the computer graphics area in the reject pile, which ended up being me. I was at the top of the reject pile for people who mentioned computer graphics in their grad school applications. This was the same thing happening all over again. So as it turns out, by the way, this is the stuff that I find is actually fun. So and in fact, later on, we included this in another grant proposal that is partially funding this year's workshop, and they loved it. But they only loved it to the extent that it went beyond the half dozen institutions that they were worried were the only ones that were participating. It turned out the year that we got this review back, at that point, literally one of those half dozen institutions had participated, and the rest were from other institutions, and this just got bigger and bigger and bigger. There's only a half dozen institutions, and last year we had 134 institutions participate, so 128 of the 134 were the ones that the reviewers wished this program to get that back. Okay, so going on to the virtual residency. What's the idea? The idea is to teach people who either are or who want to be research computing facilitators either how to be research computing facilitators or how to be better research computing facilitators. Now, of course, part of this assumes that we know how to be great research computing facilitators. And the evil secret trick is, instead of us knowing how to do it, you already know how to do it, you just don't know you know how to do it. So we all talk about what we do know, and eventually we all figure out that we know enough stuff to be useful. Okay? But that leads to the hidden secret agenda. And I had jokingly joked about this hidden secret agenda. And then about a year ago, I realized it was not a joke at all. It was actually totally true. So how many of you have had that experience where you make a joke and then it turns out the joke is totally true? Yeah, so this is what happened. And I'll get to the hidden secret. Are you excited about the hidden secret agenda? How many of you are excited about the hidden secret agenda? Yes. Okay, so the hidden secret agenda is coming up. I'm just whetting your appetite, getting you excited about the hidden secret agenda. Okay, so what do? We do the annual workshop. This is a week-long workshop. I've had people occasionally say, instead of doing a week-long workshop, we just do an hour a week all year. And the answer is nobody would show up. So instead, we feed you, and that's why you show up. And then people out in TV land, we make it free, and we try and be fun. And also, so if you get a few laughs out of it, it's already paid for itself, right? This is in some ways how I feel about my children, right? If I get a few laughs out of them, then it's worth what I'm, because they're not cheap, right? So, and I'm never going to get my money back out of them. All right, so then we've been doing these conference calls. It says bi-weekly. It varies hugely depending on the need. So this year, I had 3 grant proposals due in a row, and so we had nothing until the 3 grant proposals were submitted, and then we were doing it every other week, and then as we got closer to this event, then we started doing it weekly. So the bi-weekly is sort of a lie. It's probably bi-weekly on average, more or less. The nightmare is trying to do the doodle poll to figure out what the time slot should be for the next semester, which we'll have to do shortly. Then last year, we added a new feature. It just sort of came to me one day in the shower or something. And I said, well, why can't we, I thought about how did I learn to write grant proposals? I learned how to write grant proposals by writing grant proposals with people who already knew how to write grant proposals. And if that worked for me, why couldn't that work for other people? So, and this is literally true. So there's a guy here in the chemical engineering department who just got, it was just announced last week, he's been appointed to the, he's a AAAS fellow or a National Academy of Engineering fellow or something, a very high ranking prestigious thing. So he's like the real deal, but he's also really good, I guess these fit together, he's really good at writing grant proposals. He writes the most beautiful prose, and he can explain how he's making the decisions about what to write, both in the general sense and getting down to the little wordsmithing, sentence by sentence, phrase by phrase. He's really, really good at it. And so I essentially learned at his knee by being on grant proposals with him. And so the idea was, let's provide that capability for others. Now, the original idea we had, the original idea was we would do a little $50,000 workshop proposal, slightly under $50,000, because if you come in under $50,000, then the program officer does not have to put it out for review, doesn't have to bring in a review panel of external people to review it. They can just decide for themselves. So you always ask for just under $50,000, and then you can get a significant chunk of money to do stuff like this. And so we wrote, the first step in that thing was we wrote a little one-pager, and we sent it off to the program officer, and he was like, yeah, that's great, but if you just worked a little harder at it, you could do a full-blown proposal. So instead of $50,000, you could ask for $500,000. Well, that sounded attractive. So we spent an entire year working on that proposal. We submitted it back on Valentine's Day. Wasn't that nice? It was not funded this year, but that means that we now have reviewer feedback to make it better to resubmit for next year. So we're going to gear up and do that. I decided to defer getting started on that until after we do this workshop, because this workshop clearly was going to be a lot of work. Anyway, so why do we do this? Well, there's a number of reasons. A lot of times when you start as a facilitator, you've got really good experience and understanding of your own discipline, whatever that may be. By the way, how many of you, your native discipline is computer science? And how many of you, your native discipline ain't computer science? Okay, so you see the difference, right? More people are here who are not computer scientists than who are. Those of us who are computer scientists, we're the freaks in this business, right? Those of you who aren't computer scientists, you're normal. In fact, if you poll my counterparts, institutional cyber infrastructure center directors, you'll find the overwhelming majority of them are not computer scientists as well. Being computer science in research computing is fairly unusual. Okay? Most facilitators haven't been faculty. So just out of curiosity, how many of you are or have been faculty? And how many of you ain't and don't expect to be faculty? Okay. So you see the point I'm making, right? That, again, those of us who are or have been faculty, we're the freaks. Those of you who aren't are normal for this business, for most businesses, let's be honest. Okay. Some of the folks come in with little or no research experience. How many of you, before you got this job, you already had research experience? And how many of you, before you got this job, did not? Okay. So again, not coming from a research background is what makes you normal. And if you do have research experience, it's typically only in your own discipline. It's not across the, let's say, 30 disciplines and 300 sub-disciplines that you are meant to serve, that you are meant to facilitate. So when we started this in 2015, nobody had ever been dumb enough to do it. So we thought, all right, we'll give it a shot. Right? Worked out pretty good. And the reason this is really crucial, you know, when I was a wee lad, when I started this job back in 2001, nobody had the faintest idea what it was supposed to be. And so I had, A, enormous autonomy to discover what it was supposed to be, and B, as much time as I needed to make that discovery. So they had very limited, fuzzy, unspecific expectations for about the first 5 years. Is that still true? Or if you're hired, let me ask the question differently. If you're hired as a facilitator, how much time do you have to become amazing? 20 minutes, right? That's about it. You got to hit the ground running. Okay. So we've covered a ton of people and a ton of institutions and a ton of institution types. If everybody who registered for this workshop participates, and that won't happen, but if it did, then almost 600 people would have gone through the program. Remember I said the upper limit for academia is probably about 1,000. So we've covered, as of this week, we'll have covered roughly half of the national need in the academic world. That need is bigger when we go beyond the academic world, but that gives us a pretty good feel for the scale and scope of this thing, okay? And a lot of different kinds of institutions. And by the way, I'm very proud to say, and I'm super proud to welcome the folks from the Tennessee institutions, because you were the last holdout state. The only one left that hadn't done it as of last year. So I'm so happy you're here this year, because now I get to say every state in the union has participated. That's also why when you wrote and said I wanted to be on site, I immediately said yes. And how much would you like me to pay? Is what I said. Because it's so important to me to be able to say every state in the union, plus 3 territories as well as the 50 states. So, and then 7 other countries on 4 other continents. We haven't gotten the Australia, New Zealand area yet, and I don't really have ambitions for Antarctica. Okay, and by the way, this is all of the virtual residency activities. So it includes not just the workshops, but the calls, the proposal writing, apprenticeship, and so on and so forth. Okay. All right, why is it hard to do this, to do research computing facilitation? Number one, now everybody and their dog needs it. And that's sort of in 2 different dimensions. One of the dimensions is every discipline needs it now. So in the olden days, before my long white beard made it all the way down to the floor, it used to be that the overwhelming majority of people who were using advanced cyber infrastructure were coming from physical sciences and engineering. To first order, it was physicists, chemists, and engineers. Now, that's not literally true, but it's roughly true. And about 15, 20 years ago, the bioscientists started showing up. Lately, we're hearing more and more from, for example, social scientists. We're hearing from folks in the humanities, in the arts, in business. That's new. So more disciplines are doing it. Within each of these disciplines, more people are doing it because, of course, now there are mountains of data, oceans of data. And people are starting to figure out what they can do with the data. Now they just have to figure out how to do it. Now the other problem is the machines are getting harder to use. So the good news is on the personal end, the machines are getting easier and easier to use. Where did I put my phone? Oh, I gave it away. Yeah, all right. Well, there's my phone on Jim's desk. No, not really. Not unless it rings. And then you have to go and let them in. So, so the machines that we hold in our hands or on our laps are easier and easier to use. But the big machines are harder and harder to use. And there's sort of two dimensions to that. The storage hierarchy has gotten deeper. So now there's flash, there's non-volatile RAM is just becoming a thing, and so on and so forth. And then parallelism is getting more complicated, particularly it's getting more hybrid as we add in accelerators and things like that. So everything is getting more difficult. And finally, and I mentioned the handhelds, the mental distance between where people start and where we have to get them to has expanded. So it used to be 10, 12 years ago, when a new user came to us, they would come to us from this, from a Windows laptop background. And they felt comfortable with that. And we had to get them to command line, Linux, shared, remote, batch. Well, that was the good old days. Those days are long dead. Now they're coming to us from a handheld, from a phone or a tablet. And that mental distance is even farther. So how many of you have ever deployed a large-scale storage system? Let me ask that question. All right. So on a handheld, what do you do to double your storage capacity? Right. So you either, if it's got the little micro SD slot, you buy a little card, right? And it's what, 50 bucks, right? You go to Walmart or Best Buy or Target or wherever, you buy a little card, you stick it in the slot, and magically it's there and it's ready to go, right? Or if it doesn't have the slot, then you buy a new phone, right? Okay. So how do you, and people who've had experience with this, how do you double the capacity of your large, let me ask the question differently. What is the timeline for doubling, how long does it take to double the capacity of your large scale storage system?
Months to years.
Months to years, yes. So first you have to gather data that shows that it's needed. Then you have to go to the money people and beg them for the money and show that it's needed. Then if they approve the money, you have to go through some rigmarole to get a quote. Then you might have to put it out to compete it, right? And do some kind of request for proposals or invitation to bid or whatever your process is for your organization. That can take months. Then you get the responses back. Then you have to do an evaluation of all the responses because you better be able to prove you picked the right one. Then after you go through all that rigmarole, you finally send them a purchase order, and then you wait a month before the equipment shows up, right? Is that roughly the timeline you're used to? So that could be anywhere from 2 months to a year, right? Okay, so it might be a little different on the federal side. In academia, a year is probably the upper limit if you can prove you need it and they believe you. If they don't believe you, then you come back every year until they finally believe you. But probably 6 months is normal for something like that. And then the actual physical deployment is incredibly fraught with peril, right? Everything can go horribly wrong. You can lose all the existing data while you're at it. So it's a huge difference between what you do day to day with your handheld device and what happens at large scale. And by the way, when you sit down with that researcher, how much time do you have to get them productive in this completely alien environment that is totally opaque to them and makes no sense? How long do you have? Yes, Aaron?
Their paper or their graphical is due next week.
It's due next week. That's more than we usually get. Next week is longer than I'm accustomed to. My usual rule of thumb is you have 1 hour. And if you can't get them productive in 1 hour, they lose interest and they're gone, right? And it's your fault. By the way, I don't mean it's literally your fault. I mean, you are the one who's going to be held accountable. Okay. This is also becoming more common across institutions. Now, I looked at academic institutions because I know how to find the list of them and then look it up. You just go to the website and you type in their search bar, high performance computing or research computing, and see what pops up. And what I found was of the top 50 institutions, according to the US News rankings, this is for national doctoral granting institutions, 49 of the top 50 have some kind of central research computing resource or organization, and 96 of the top 100. I'm not going to embarrass the 4 that don't, but I have actually committed the 4 that don't to memory. 136 of the top 150, 167 of the top 200. I could go through the top 300, but the percentages start going down at that point. But it's quite common, and this was not true 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was a much, much lower percentage at each level. Okay. Now, there's all these organizations all over the country. Join all of them, or as many as you can get your hands on. And for many of these organizations, the people who you can contact to help you get hooked up with them are either in the room right now or are out in TV land or will be out in TV land later this week. So we can help you get in touch with these various organizations. And notice I bold-faced and underlined the campus champions. So Dana Brunson and I are joint co-managers of the Exceed Campus Engagement Program, which is an umbrella that has the Campus Champions under them. How many of you have heard of the Campus Champions? Okay. So the Campus Champions, did somebody tell us what they are? Yes, Kathy.
These are people that generally volunteer or get volunteered, as when in TerraGrid, I got volunteered as I was learning what parallel programming and research computing was. Because I was the only person at my research center that knew how to program that wasn't doing research. But the campus champions go through their campus, they introduce different people to Exceed. When I did it, I went to faculty meetings and I even went to art and literature and history, and I talked about Exceed and what campus champions were, and if you thought you might have a project you wanted to do. And we got a project with Poe, trying to determine how many of the poems and prose that he wrote were really written by him. We had got another one with Shakespeare.
Nice.
From that kind of thing. Long-term professors don't want to take time away from their research to learn how to do parallel programming. And I was getting no's at every faculty meeting. And then I realized I had to go back to the faculty meeting and ask if I could teach their graduate students. You gotta sneak up on them.
Yeah.
Gotta be sneaky.
So roughly speaking, the Campus Champions are the informal professional society for research computing professionals.
Right.
So it's not officially formal, and we're trying to create something officially formal, but in round figures, in a fuzzy sense, that's the role of the Campus Champions organization. We are a group of now almost 500 research computing professionals at I think it's 259 institutions and organizations around the country. And we're having internal discussions on questions like, should we be inviting people from other countries to join us or helping them to start their own? That's still an open question.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
About it. Can you have more than one from a campus?
Oh my God, yes. In fact, we are waiting for, I think, one more signature on our new version of the letter of collaboration that will include almost everybody within our organization. So I think we now have, once we get it submitted, which I'm hoping is this week during the workshop, we'll have something like 10 campus champions here, and there's no upper limit. I mean, okay, so it's got to fit on that web page.
Yeah.
But if you want to have 10, knock yourself out, because we're not stopping.
Okay.
And I don't think we're even the largest number. I think there are a couple institutions that have like 15. And it is true that most institutions have like 1 or 2, but there's no artificial limit on that. Okay, what are we not trying to do? We're not trying to teach technical content. That's not what this is for. We're trying to teach the profession of research computing. Now, I mentioned there was a hidden agenda. Are you ready for it? Okay, so the hidden agenda that I jokingly said and then realized wasn't a joke is really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to teach you how to do my job. Ideally at some other institution. But my goal for you to become not only a facilitator of research computing, but a leader of research computing. Certainly at your own institution, and perhaps for some of us, ultimately at the national level as well. And the big driving issue is that the people who are doing that now, they are getting ready to retire. Some of them have already retired. And the demographic reality is that all of us are going to be dragged kicking and screaming upstairs. There is no point in resisting. It is far too late for that. Okay, I actually have some numbers here somewhere. Okay. I don't have them here, but so it's really, really crucial that we learn to do this, not just for our own sake, but for the sake of our institutions individually and the country as a whole. Okay. So here's the agenda. This is also available on the webpage, so go look it up on the webpage. We are doing the tour tonight. I had not planned to do the tour. I assumed 3 of them in a row, you'd all be sick of it. But then on the calls, I asked about that. Everybody's like, no, we totally got to do that tour. We love the tour. So it's back by popular demand. We got lots of good stuff coming. We tried to cover 5 basic themes, and I'll try and rattle them off. Cyber infrastructure leadership, budgeting and grantsmanship, communication, outreach, and expertise, which is sort of technical stuff. Okay. And we tried each day to have a mix of those topics. And some of the sessions are sort of multiple of those topic areas, and some of them are individual, but we tried each day to have most of those topic areas covered. We figured if we did like 1 day of cyber infrastructure leadership, at the end of the day, you'd be bored and hate it. So we're mixing it up. Okay. We do have a tour of the National Weather Center Wednesday late afternoon. If you are not already booked on that tour, you're not going on that tour because they needed to have that list well in advance. Particularly if you are not a US citizen, they needed your form 2 weeks ago. But anyway, so we're gonna have a grand time. Are you excited? Yeah. Yay. Okay, good. The agenda's on the webpage. And by the way, the agenda is merely guidelines, right? It's like Pirates of the Caribbean. Right? It's not a rule, it's just guidelines. So the schedule, you know, times will be flexible, nothing's gonna be exact. We might add something, we might take something out, we might put in some more panelists or whatever. Anything can change at any time. There are no promises on the posted agenda. It might all be lies. Now my guess is it'll be mostly true most of the time, but there's probably at least a few lies in there at the moment. Okay? And you need to help us learn how to help you learn. Okay, I've sort of covered all this. Okay, so there. I want you to be a cyber infrastructure leader. That's the goal. Okay, I said all this stuff. I said that. Oh, but this is good. So 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every day. Right, and that was 8 years ago. So the pace has probably increased. Yeah. And so they will drag us upstairs, kicking and screaming. Last call on pizza, by the way. It's about to leave. They're cleaning it up. So. And let me tell you why this is the best job in the world. Yeah, if you need anything to drink, grab it now. But we're going to be going downstairs in about 10, 15 minutes. So while you're getting your pizza, I'll fill you in on why this is the best job ever. Are you excited?
Yes.
Especially undergraduates. Are you excited? Yes, good. Here's why it's the best job ever. Because every single day, you get to see that the work you're doing is valuable to and valued by your fellow human beings. You get to see when you help someone get their code up and running on your machine, suddenly they can do stuff that they could never do before, and they wouldn't have been able to figure out how to do on their own. Where if they could figure out how to do it, it would take a lot more time and energy and tears. So you make their lives better. Okay? We had, it's a couple of months ago now, we had a reporter from the local TV station come and interview me and a postdoc and a professor, because the postdoc and the professor used our supercomputer to find the first ever planet outside of the Milky Way galaxy. the first ever extragalactic planet, as they say. It has never happened before in all of human history, and it happened right here in this building. In fact, in the data center, I mean, they weren't there. They were somewhere. They were over in the physics building, presumably. But the supercomputer was doing the number crunching to discover a planet outside of the Milky Way. And so they were excited and happy, and we got to be on TV. And if you really, really want to see it, I can look up the URL somewhere, but it's not that great. I mean, I'm always fascinating, of course. You're going to have plenty of Henry video, more than you can stomach by the end of the week, so, you know. But you get to see every day the value of it. Okay, so these are the grants that are funded the virtual residency up till now and are funding this year. We're very excited to have sponsorship from the National Science Foundation through these various grants. Disclaimer, the National Science Foundation is not directly responsible for any of the content, that's us. They are funding it through various grant sources. Okay, and questions. I love questions, including from out in TV land. And I will bring back up this. I'm gonna make this a little woozy.